This meeting to order. We'll begin the evening with public comment. We have two individuals signed up. First is Mr. Steve Watkins. Floor is yours. Yeah. And just give us a second to make sure we got the timer going. As you know.
Go ahead.
3 seconds.
We won't be too harsh.
Yeah, so just two things I want to talk about. One is to give you an update on the Fletcher ABC side. I'm guessing you haven't had an update since I gave you the update. Is that correct?
That's right.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, so that's the reason I was going. Okay. All right, so this reason I wanted to give you an update unofficially, just as a citizen. So Moss Sign did actually respond to the threat of litigation. It's unfortunate, but I was there just a couple of days ago. So where the sign is going to be, they brought in the cage where the footer is going to be, and then they brought in the big sleeve that will go in there. So things are going, things are happening. And it was just threat of litigation, money back, all that kind of stuff. It's unfortunate. So, but at least it's moving along.
Yeah.
So I just want to give you an update on that. It's going in our side, especially mine. So that's at least good. And then just want to take the opportunity as far as the chairman. I had mentioned before you asked when I had to resign for health issues. We had a recommendation. So we've got a recommendation this year, and I just want to re-emphasize that Samantha Todd does come with the recommendation of the past chairman, and also the current board and managers there. So just want to let you know, so have the support there. And of course with mine, it's very biased to it. For obvious reasons. And it is a fun thing. It's for my bias being a father to be up and to brag about your baby girl in front of folks. And that she's going to be good for the town if she makes it. So with that, that's all I had, and appreciate your time.
Thank you, Steve.
And thank you for your service, Steve.
Oh, you're very welcome.
And next up, we have Mr. Dennis Justice. And I know you know how it goes as well. Let's make sure we have our 3 minutes going.
Ready to go?
Yes, you have the teaser attachment of this. I'm Dennis Justice, I live in the Hoover Creek area. We just wish to rehash my gratitude for the pickleball courts, the multi-court sport courts that are going to be coming. Sorry I missed the ice skating. I've been hired temporarily back to Amazon to be delivering, so I'll be talking about that briefly as just a little side note. But I just wanted to emphasize, I was contacted by the Asheville Citizen Times for some ideas about all the pickleball courts and the need of pickleball courts in Asheville and Buncombe, and I just tried to direct them to information what's going on in Henderson County, because a lot of local governments are taking proactive steps to avoid the problems that we're having in Buncombe and Asheville. They are now going to take turns with the tennis courts and for pickleball courts will be alternating days and such. And I don't really like that. And I think about the $1 million that their TDA allocated for the U.S. Tennis Open for advertising. They got Asheville's logo on there. I don't know if you noticed it or not. I know it, I'm not going to tell you it had no positive impact for Asheville. Of course it did. But I don't think advertising is the best use of TDA or tourism tax money. I think infrastructure and local staffing is. And I think pickleball courts up in Asheville would be a better use of that money. Over the next year, we're going to see these courts here. And I hope that you would just keep a lookout on how much it is actually being used. I don't expect it being used every single moment during the daytime every single day, but I think eventually there'll be some good use. Again, I want to emphasize the point of having your consulting group, your engineers, indicate to you how much free space is actually available for expansion. I noticed at the Asheville Rocket Club, again, they had a 16-foot walkway in between two different sets of courts. If you were to make a decision down the road to expand to more pickleball courts, or maybe a futsal court, a walkway in between that and the pickleball courts would be a very good idea. And I hope that you just keep that in mind. If you decide it's good traffic, we may not want to expand yet, we want to add lights, that might be an option for you next summer. Summer will be here before you know it. Faith. I mentioned I'm going back to Amazon. I may not be here next week, so I decided to go and speak these things today. It's not too early to start thinking about planning for your rides. If you go to any Christmas parties or New Year's party, I drive for Uber and Lyft and, of course, for Amazon. We're not infallible. No one's really infallible. But keep in mind that just be very careful out there on New Year's Eve, which will be over the weekend. And I just hope you all have a very Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. Thank you.
We thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else that wishes to speak? Public comment? Seeing none, we'll move on to updates from council. I just had 2 updates. One, Christmas in the park was absolutely wonderful. So kudos to Parks and Rec for that. And additionally, I want to thank Christine for helping us get all the things together for the parade. We had a lot of fun. Trevor and Bob and I went, and I hope the rest of the council can come next year because we could probably use some help with decorating. We weren't the best, but we did what we could. So, Councilmember Franklin and Reed, to you all.
The good thing was, we were right behind a group that their theme was a Christmas vacation with the beat-up old station wagon and the tree on top and Cousin Eddie. So we kind of fit right into that.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
We'll get it taken care of next year.
Yeah.
We'll do it up.
But it's, it's the first time we've done a night parade, so we really didn't know how to be prepared for it.
Yeah. But it went really well, and thank you, Christine, for helping us get that. Any other updates from council? Seeing none, moving on to item number 3, the consent agenda. Any questions, comments, or concerns related to that item? Seeing none. Moving on to item number 4, we have Ms. Melissa Whitmire, the Executive Director of the Council on Aging, here for a presentation. And we thank you for being here. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Excellent. So my name is Melissa Whitmire. I am the new Executive Director for the Council on Aging. I have been the new director for about 8 months and wanted to give you an update on where we're at and what's happening. So first and foremost, thank you so much from our board of directors for allowing me to come tonight and to speak with you about where we are and what's happening in our expansion within Henderson County. So the first thing I wanted to share is our mission and vision, if you're not aware of the Council on Aging. So our mission is to provide and coordinate services, resources, and supports for aging adults here in Henderson County. And that vision that the board set for us is that no one ages alone. So keep that in mind as we think about what is happening in Henderson County. So I went to a conference over in Raleigh. The state of North Carolina is really trying to target becoming an age-friendly state. And with that, they showed us some statistics. And what it shows is that North Carolina is quickly becoming a super-age state. But what keyed into me very quickly is that we are a super-aged community. And what does that mean? That means that we have a high population of people that are aging in Henderson County. About 26% of our community is what we consider aging. And it will be about 33% in the next 10 years. So we have to think about that as we begin to plan for our services throughout the county and how we're going to support our aging community. And you ask why? It's because the boomers are beginning to age and they are starting to retire. And we also have people like myself who came from Florida, I came about 8 months ago, and are retiring here. So as we think about that community and what we're going to do, we're going to have a lot of older people and not a lot of young people to take care of them. So we want to think about that. With that, the Council on Aging provides our Meals on Wheels program to Henderson County. In the last fiscal year, we served about 823 people, which was about 81,000 meals. What I wanted to share with you is that in the last 8 months, we've written 2 grants. What we realized is that a lot of our routes to serve Meals on Wheels to those homebound aging adults, we were really struggling because of the Fletcher and Edneyville areas, getting up here, supporting the homebound aging adults. And so we wrote for 2 very specific targeted grants through Meals on Wheels America, which we were awarded, both of which are to support and expand our efforts here in Fletcher. So the first grant was a Food Lion Feeds grant, and we were awarded $35,000, which allowed us to begin to pilot 3 routes up here in the Fletcher area, supporting about 30 aging adults. We then wrote another grant, which we are now going to be partnering with the Meals on Wheels of Asheville and Buncombe. So how we're different, we both provide Meals on Wheels, but Meals on Wheels Asheville has a kitchen that self-supports what they're doing. So they're cooking their own meals to get them out into the community. We partner with Advent and Pardee to receive our meals. And what we found was that Advent and Pardee were really maxed out of what they were able to provide us, and so we needed to find a third partner. And fortunately, Meals on Wheels Asheville Buncombe stood up and said, "We really like to partner with you." But bringing that food from Asheville all the way down to Hendersonville to then route it back out to Fletcher seemed really just daunting and too much. So we looked for a partner. We're currently partnering with United Methodist here in town as our hub and spoke for the program. So the food comes down from Asheville Buncombe, and then we partner with the church to get our volunteers to come here to serve those 30 aging adults in the community. I think what's important to see is that those 30 aging adults will receive about 7,800 meals in a year. So what we do is we provide 5 meals for them a week, which includes their meal, milk, and fresh fruit. And it helps to give them a third of their daily nutritional allowance. And so we're really proud of that program. We just kicked that off November 15th. So we'll be running the program for another year and really looking to continue that with Meals on Wheels Asheville Buncombe throughout what we do over the next 5 years. Because we know that Fletcher and this area is really growing, and we want to make sure that we continue to support the area. So that's one of the programs. We also have our Sammy Williams Center, which is our congregate dining site, which serves a hot meal to aging adults. We are currently looking to expand our congregate meal sites. We met with Calvary Episcopal the other day. Thank you for linking us. And that may be a good site for us to open up our second congregate site. We have a lot of older adults that are participating and coming to the Sammy Williams Center. We have a lot of aging adults that are driving to the Sammy Williams Center every day. Some folks that are 80 up into their mid-90s that are on the road coming from up here. So we'd like to find a site to try to keep some of them here local. So that's something that we'll keep you abreast of when we can partner and open that site up, hopefully with Calvary Episcopal. We also have a liquid nutrition program where we're supporting people who have a diagnosis from their doctor that they need liquid nutrition and support them. We're currently serving about 30 people, but we served over the last year about 178 people in the county with about 23,000 bottles of liquid nutrition given to them during the year. We also have an information referral line that we're working on and making sure that people who need support in the community can call us and we can really talk with them, identify their needs, and then get them out to the community resources that they might need, the support groups, any types of doctor's appointments. We get all kinds of phone calls there. So we provided over about 2,000 referrals last year. We also provide a caregiver program, and so that's for your residents who may be aging in place here in Fletcher, who may need the support of somebody coming in to help them, or may have a caregiver who's living with them who really needs a break. And so we have grant funding that we receive from the state to help to support caregivers and give them the respite that they need. And then we also have 2 thrift stores. We have the Hendersonville thrift store and the Etowah thrift store that are supporting what we're doing. And we are looking for a 3rd location to open up the thrift store. So hoping to find a spot here in Fletcher that may be able to support a thrift store for the Council on Aging. So if you have any ideas, please let us know. So these are some of the top concerns that we're seeing at the Council on Aging that are really critical. Our aging adults are really focused on chronic diseases, behavioral health, so mental health and substance use issues. Oral health is another major concern. We have people who are uninsured trying to identify dental services and are finding that they can't get appointments for a year to 2 years. So that becomes a critical need for people. We also know that falls prevention is a key topic. We have a lot of aging adults that are falling and may have risks in their home. So we're doing some falls prevention education, and then caregiver support, those people who really are reaching out because they're struggling. They may have a loved one with Alzheimer's or dementia that's aging at home, and they just are at their wit's end. So we're really trying to be there and help them. I think what's critical, and I thank Preston, I invited him. One of the things 8 months ago when I came was to the town, we didn't have a unified voice for our aging adults here in Henderson County. I kind of said, we're the Council on Aging, so where's the council? And we're developing now the Henderson County Aging Coalition, and we currently have a survey that we have put out into the community to identify what our gaps and needs are. What's critical is that Henderson County is not just Hendersonville, and we want to make sure that Fletcher, Mills River, Edmondville, Flat Rock, that we're hearing from people. Our survey is being supported by AARP. You might have gotten a postcard in the mail that asked you to do the survey. We have reached out to Preston and the town officials. I think it's going to be published in the December
I think we're
newsletter.
going to, the January, I believe.
January.
Yeah.
So the survey is going to be closing towards the end of January. Our hope then is, after we hear from our residents about what the needs and gaps are in the communities, is that we really start to have listening sessions and sit down and strategically meet with residents of each of the communities to talk about what their needs are. Because we have a major task that we have to get completed in 2023, and that's the Henderson County Master Aging Plan. And that's not something that we're really talking about. I have a couple meetings coming up with the county. The aging plan that was written 5 years ago really focused on what the Council on Aging was going to do over the next 5 years. And that's not a master aging plan. A master aging plan is what are we going to take a look at? What are our priorities for the next 5 years? And that's where that data is really critical to help us steer action items for the county and for our towns and cities to identify what are priorities and how are we going to work on those priorities over the next 5 years. If you're interested, I encourage you to get involved in the Henderson County Aging Coalition. Our next meeting is in January. I'd be happy to invite you and have you come into that. But we're really hoping to have a voice that speaks for what can we do to support the 33% of the aging population that's going to be here in 10 years. And the issues that we're really taking a look at are some of the slides that are going to be coming up. 1 in 6 of our aging adults experiences elder abuse. We know that with COVID, behavioral health issues have really emerged, but what we have seen is that in the last 10 years, our rates of suicide have increased and continue to increase. We lost about 47,000 adults in 2019 to suicides. We want to focus in on some of those behavioral health concerns. We know that behavioral health, both substance use and mental health, are on the community health assessment, so we want to bring that into this master aging plan as well. We know that with substance use, the opioid issue has caused a lot of overdoses to occur, and we know that we're seeing many of those overdoses impacting our aging adults, age 55 and over. So we want to have a keen eye on what that looks like for the community. And we also want you to know that there are a lot of resources that are out there, not just the Council on Aging. So how do we bring all of these resources to the table to make sure that we're identifying our needs, getting them out to our communities so that there are resources that people can reach out to. We hope that the coalition can do that. We hope that the Master Aging Plan will help broaden some of those services and resources, and that we really continue to grow what we have in this county to support that population that we're going to be seeing soon. So I thank you. We've got a lot going on at the Council on Aging, but wanted you to know how we are really trying to serve the people here in Fletcher and Henderson County. Do you have any questions?
Well, I'll just encourage council to share that survey that you referenced in our circles. So
Take it
So-
and share it.
and
please.
take it yourself. I've taken it as well.
Thank you.
And then can you share when that January meeting is, just in case anybody on council wants to attend? If you know it off the top
I
of your
think
head.
it's Friday, January 20th. If that's the Friday, it's Friday at 8:30 in the morning at the Henderson County Chamber of Commerce. We are likely going to be moving the meetings in February. February or March, we've got about 70 people, both public and private, that are attending right now. So we've got a very rich group of folks, both from the city, the county, private organizations, hospital systems, that are Blue Ridge Community College, that are coming to really talk about what we need to be doing. We're really in the mission vision work right now. We were there the last time working on what the mission and vision will look like for the organization. But some of our next steps are really going to be action planning from this data. What do we need? I'm not sure if you're aware, but Henderson County is only one of 3 counties in the state of North Carolina that does not have a senior center. So, yes. So those are some things that we really have to take a look at what we need. We've seen, just from the Council on Aging, congregate dining sites are something that we need to take a look at. Dental care, transportation continues to evolve. Affordable housing, I'm sure that surprises all of you. So we'll see what the data tells us, but really those priorities are going to be critical.
Any other questions from council?
I can
Oh, go ahead, Mark.
comment. I know our police chief has been trying to get a lot of information out about fraud prevention, and there's been a lot of seniors, elderly folks that have been targeted, and specifically he had mentioned a case, or several not long ago, where, I mean, it's just heartbreaking how much money these people were defrauded. So I mentioned that if reach out to our chief, or I can have our chief reach out to you. They're looking for opportunities for sessions to educate the public about just tips, well, particularly elderly population, because they're often target for and kind of fall prey to some of these, I mean, scams that are all over the place. They're trying to get all of us, but so it could be a speaker or just provide information. So
We would love to talk about that. And that really falls in line with another topic that we are hearing more frequently now, which is digital literacy. Really having education classes for our aging adults. As we think about issues like transportation, how do we solve that? Immediately, I heard somebody talking about Uber Health earlier, Uber. But if you don't know how to use your phone and don't feel confident putting in a credit card, how do you get an Uber ride? So there's a lot that we have to take a look at with our aging adults, giving them the knowledge, education, and resources if they're going to get involved to make sure that they're safe in doing it.
Anything more from council? Well, we thank you for the work that you do.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you very much.
Councilman, Henderson County needs a senior center.
Yeah, that's disheartening here.
It
We're
is.
one of 3 counties.
And we
That's,
probably have one of the highest percentage of elderly of any county in the state.
We do, and it's growing rapidly.
Yeah.
So I am having some behind-the-scenes meetings just to talk about that. So.
Does Transylvania have one?
Yes,
Buncombe?
yes.
Of
And in
course.
fact, Buncombe is one that if you hear on the news, they're trying to create an age-friendly senior center. And I think UNC Asheville has given the land. They're now waiting on the county commission to support some funding for that. But they're hoping to develop a senior center where all the resources, services, and supports can have offices. So it's kind of a one-stop place for people to go. So not only active aging classes, prevention education classes, but also resources that are there too to help people. So they're actively trying to create kind of a bigger hub for people.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, I'm kind of like Preston. I spent many years working with the Land of Sky Regional Council, and it always seemed like Henderson County was way behind in terms of programs offered and stuff like that.
Yes, we are. We're working on it.
Good.
and we thank you for your work.
Thank you.
Anything more before we go? Okay. Moving on to item number 5, the discussion and review of application, I believe, received for the position of ABC Board Chairperson. I believe we have Ms. Samantha Todd here, who just got a wonderful recommendation. If you want to come to the podium and just introduce yourself, and if council has any questions, please ask away. And we thank you for being here.
Yeah, thank you. So I'll tell a little bit about myself first, and then
ask any questions. You can help them. So I found out that there was an opening, obviously, because my father had to step down. But it was just, he loved the position. He would come home after the meetings and, you know, be super excited and stuff. And so I knew he had a lot of fun. I was interested in the position because I do have a lot of history here in Fletcher. Actually, I don't know if you remember this, but the mayor here threw rocks at me when I was a little girl.
Oh my gosh.
Uh-huh.
Oh man.
Now it's coming out.
I'm called. No, I don't remember that, but I bought out with the rock statue.
You may have ulterior motive for this position. Thanks to you.
So I've lived here for over 20 years. I just went down the road to UNC Asheville and attended college there. So I have 3 bachelor's degrees there from in accounting, management, and finance. And then after I graduated, I was at Continental in Fletcher, which is was one of the biggest employers in Fletcher, and I was there for 5 years as a financial analyst. So I wanted, once I found this position was open, I thought it was a great opportunity to bring some youth to the position and to the town.
Calling you old.
And in addition,
And I can sit here and say,
in addition to my skill set and knowledge, I think that I could provide a lot of good assets to this board.
Well, besides the blackmail of me throwing rocks at you, I do think you're very well qualified as well. I read over your resume with your management experience, I believe, and financial experience, and youth. I also think you would be an asset for the town. Any questions, Ms. Todd?
How will you work out your time with your job as an owner of an accounting firm, plus do this?
But I really just treat it as another client, so I would build it into my schedule just as another client.
I'm sure your dad shared with you how many hours he puts in or whatever. What does that look like for a chairman for the ABC board?
Well, it's an hourly meeting once a month, and then just additional time. It depends on how much is on the plate. So just a
Exactly.
couple hours a month, I would say. It's not heavy lifting.
Good.
Has that announcement closed or
I believe it
It
has.
did, it closed December 2nd.
December?
Okay.
We had moved it out. It was open, I believe, mid-October, and we extended it out so that it would close right before there, so it'd be last minute.
And this is indeed the one application, right?
Yes, we had
Okay.
another one, but they changed their mind and at the last minute and
Okay.
said no. So, but they had too much going on, it was gonna take too much of their time.
Any other questions? Well, Ms. Todd, we thank you for being here. Next week, we'll make the appointment. Is there any opposition to moving this to the consent agenda? Are we okay doing that, Christine?
It's up to y'all.
You want to
Okay.
do that?
Yeah.
It's only application, yeah.
Let's move it on to the consent agenda, and we'll appoint you next week. We
I
thank you.
just hope you don't feel bad being the only person on the list, but you're
Very well
very
qualified.
well qualified, so none of us feel bad about it.
Okay, good. And I don't mean to be rude, but it is my 2-year-old and 3 months bedtime, so if you wouldn't mind if I...
You can leave whenever you want to.
I'd like
Please
to
do.
miss the meeting, but
That's okay. Thank you for being here. Okay, moving on, item number 6. Next week, I believe we'll have Carol Avery here for the presentation of the annual year-end audit for fiscal year 21-22. Any questions ahead of that?
And if
go
there's
ahead.
any questions, I'll wait for that, but I was just gonna make a couple brief comments. The audit's obviously done. I just wanted to give you a heads up, there's no surprises. It was another good, clean audit, if you will, no audit findings, no statements of material weaknesses. Our fund balance is, no surprise, very strong, and it grew again. Our overall fund balance will be, ending that fiscal year that this audit's for, which is June 30, 2022, It's at 7,779,000, just over, almost 7.8 million. Almost, over 7,779,000 rather, and increased by over 1.2 million from the prior year. So that's
Wow.
that's restricted and unrestricted monies. And then when you go to, we talked a lot about unassigned fund balance, which is monies that's available basically for anything that's not designated. And it's good to have a healthy reserve of unassigned fund balance, that portion of your total fund balance that's not assigned to a topic or restricted to a function. That's at 5,774,000 over that. So that puts us, I talk about a percentage when we have a fund balance policy. So the amount of unassigned fund balance as a percentage of your general fund expenditures, we're at 74.3%. Our policy says we want to keep it between 45 and 65%. So, yeah, I think there'll be some opportunities with some capital projects, and I would encourage you to consider maybe using some of those reserves for that. I just want to hit those quick highlights.
The money that we
No,
got?
I'm sorry, the money for ARP,
Yeah.
the American, it does not. So at the end of this fiscal year, depending on, our overall expenses and revenues coming in, we may grow fund balance aside from the over 2.6 million from the ARP allocation. So, we'll be in a very good shape with that. Hopefully we can get the town center portion, project back on track. If we could do that before the end of the fiscal year and get our developer back in, sell the property basically, and that frees up even more in there. But I mean, we're in very good shape, and I just want to hit those quick highlights. Carol will go over Avery with Loudermilk Church, our accounting firm that does the annual independent audit for years now. She'll give them more in depth and have some handouts, and you'll have the bound copy of the financial statements and all of it. So we'll have that for you next week.
Any questions for Mark on that? Okay. Moving on to item number 7, the discussion of the custom questions for citizen survey. Mr. Manager.
Okay, thank you, Mayor and Council. I have in your packet a memo, basically mentioning a couple things as far as where we're at with getting this survey sent out through Polco. The draft kind of template, if you will, of the citizen survey, that's very similar questions or almost identical to what they send to most communities. That's a copy that's in your packet. I also, on the dais is another version that you have a copy of that includes these custom questions that we can do. We paid for up to a half page of custom questions. So if you look at the copy that's on the dais here, and if you page over to question number 13, it breaks out several suggested custom questions. And these questions came from, I discussed with you, just issues that at least I've observed that would seem of importance to council, just based on prior initiatives or things that we wanted to pursue. So in the memo in the packet, it mentions 5 questions, and they've got those underneath question number 13 in this draft of the survey. One of them's on how important it is to you to limit scale residential development in Fletcher. Another is how important it is to you for the development of the town's downtown area, obviously called our Fletcher Town Center. Rating how much of a priority, if at all, a new library facility is to serve residents in the Fletcher area. And then one on greenways. So how important to you is it to have additional greenway trails? And I wrote that extend from the town's park system. The reason I put that, because that's kind of the lowest hanging fruit, if you will, and the least obtrusive to other areas that our bike pedestrian plan had and other areas that the original Greenway master plan had. So that's extending from the Billmore Community Park, the Cane Creek Greenway, like going toward, onto the Meritor property.
So that's what you're talking about, not the Fletcher Connect?
Pardon me?
Is that what you're talking about, the extending from this property is from the master plan, not the Fletcher Connect project?
Right.
So, yeah, okay. That's why I was trying to figure out exactly what it from. If it was for the Fletcher Connect, it needs to be additional wording to that, so it actually says that, like something like on private personal property that the town will have to obtain from these private residents.
Okay. I was trying to keep a little more simple, just to greenways, how much of a priority, and to specifically mention the park, so extending from there. If you all want additional language that specifies.
I would get more and more in depth in some of this stuff, because it's kind of somewhat, I think, a little vague, if that makes sense. More you can put into it. I met with somebody a couple of months ago, actually, didn't know exactly what a greenway was. They thought it was green space between houses, but it's not developments and notes. It's actually walking trails. So, I mean, it's something simple as that.
So definition on Greenway Trail,
And if it meets the master plan, if that's what it is, it meets the master plan to connect to Meritor.
okay?
And that's what you're saying, correct?
Yeah.
Or greenways within the park, additional greenways within the park.
Well, it goes outside the park, so.
It goes to that property right there,
Yeah,
which you have to
yeah.
obtain, which you have to obtain property.
I can mention that. And I'll work on whatever edits y'all would like, or if you want to add questions or more specificity, and I can route that back to you.
I wonder if you need an A or a B. Like, for instance, an A and B underneath that for through public lands or through private lands.
Even that's tricky because a lot of the greenway is gonna go through private lands in terms of Ferncleave, Fernleaf, and some of this other property, so.
Yeah, even the Meritor one, which is not a complicated one, it does, the current path that we have has it come across Charlie owns property, which he's okay with.
Right.
And there's a little piece, even example of that, the Westfelds. I know they're going to approach them about, there's just this little connection point. Once you go under 25, and either whether we do a bridge or come up and around the road and then back through, there's a little connection point there that they're going to approach them if they'll get right away on that. It would just make it cleaner right there on that connection point. So.
The problem we have here, as you probably know, is, when that other plan came out, it scared a lot of people. There's a lot of people in this town that, I'm afraid if we're not careful, they'll completely want to stop Greenway expansion and not be able to separate the different types of expansion.
If it's expansion through Fletcher owned property, and yes, if it goes through people's property in the eminent domain, then no.
Right.
Because I know that one community was very outraged about that. And a lot of folks, even on that Fletcher Connect, I'm not going to get on it too much, is the people that says that contribute to this plan. I spoke to some of these folks, and their names on it, and they have never heard of it. So that's kind of, transparency is really foremost, number one. Keith, have you ever heard of the Fletcher Connect?
No.
Your name's on there. For the planning board. So there's a perfect example. It's like, well, who made this Fletcher Connect? If you was a big instrumental part of this Fletcher Connect, but your name's on there, but you never heard of it. So it's just things like that. So I'm not going to get into it.
Just clarity.
Well, if you have
specific suggestions as far as language or some of the things that you'd like on this, or I can come back with a different set, more information in there. Like, definitely the definition of the Greenway Trail. And we can break, if we needed to, break it into a series of questions underneath if it needed to, like similar to some of the other ones where, if a topic is downtown development, how much you support residential components, commercial components, institutionals, things like that, that kind of went back to when we surveyed the public back when we did the market kind of update on the town center project, and they did a survey out at that time.
This survey right here?
Yes.
Yes.
I think that's.
And Ms. Bay, even looking at this, with what, I don't want it to happen the same way with this, and if you look at your survey, I could probably give it to you, and so I should have got a copy of it. It says, where do you live? And there's a Fletcher area, but there says Fletcher, and there's Asheville. Asheville's got a larger mark. So these people from Asheville's deciding what Fletcher should do. And if you look on down, Harrisonville's a mark, and also other is a humongous mark.
So where do you? I'm not sure that's the question. Where do you work?
Oh, where do you work? I'm sorry. I'm sorry. That's where you, I'm sorry. I thought that's where you live. I'm sorry. But some of these questions on here, it'd be nice to move some over here. But going on through here, we don't have to make no decisions tonight, correct?
You don't have to. I mean, relatively soon, within a month, so we just keep it moving along.
Because it'd be nice to, I know we had an issue about you're only going to give out so many people will get mail-ins, and the rest of them you just had to go online. If that's the case, I know we had some heartburn, which I'm one of the people who had the heartburn, that only certain people get mailers, is can we send this out with the taxes? Some type of card saying this is going out there, or send them the packet. And also maybe clean up some of this stuff. I went through some of it, and it's like the last page it talks about the community survey. It talks about your household. Some of these people ain't gonna fill out this, like how much do you make a year? How much you make a month,
What does it matter?
Yeah, please rate your overall health. I mean, things like that, this is getting into people's personal business, and again,
Yeah.
it should not matter.
I didn't like the 14 or 14A because I'm thinking, what does it matter?
Yeah,
I can understand your age being identified because we may want to make sure that we've got a good cross-section of all ages, or maybe, maybe that might apply to some of the things that one age group would prefer over another, but I sure don't understand what the difference in gender makes, especially when we make sure that we take care of whatever gender they are when it comes to bathrooms and things. I just don't get it.
And some of these other ones, I think we need to really go through here. Some stuff, it repeats several different times. If you look, I'm just going to try and get some examples for over on the next page. It says the overall feeling safety in Fletcher. Then you go down on number 5. It talks about about the law enforcement. So it's kind of like it's hitting the same points. And some of these things right here, it depends on, I hate to say vague. It'd be nice if it was cleaned up a little bit more and maybe reduce the number of pages that we put in here, because once you start getting past 4 or 5, people don't want to do it. But I say vague is it's just how it says well-planned residential growth or well-planned commercial growth. There's several different things. It's almost like you can almost build this thing, and the only thing you're putting in here is number 1 for excellence, good, fair, poor, and don't know. And if you build something in here that, I'm trying to think of an example I'm trying to get at. Let's say the park. We want not saying this is what we want. Let me put that there. Make sure that we're not saying what we want. Say we want a shooting range at the park, which nobody wants a shooting range at the park. So you put it in here, and they look at it and say, okay, shooting range at the park. How do you evaluate shooting range at the park? Poor, fair, good, or excellent? They're going to say, well, I don't want poor because we don't have one. So you put poor. The data gets collected, it goes back to us and saying, where are we deficient at? And so, well, we're poor at shooting range at the park, so I guess we need to get a shooting range at the park. So it can be spun
So you
around
have
that
to
way.
double check all the questions.
Hey,
Yeah.
Mark, I know that the company answered some of the questions that we had last time, but it seems like we're really getting into the nitty gritty of this. And if we're doing this, why are we even paying for this survey to happen? Why are we paying for them to do this? Is there a way that they could come and just explain, or if they have to do it virtually, just explain why they asked the questions that they ask, or?
I mean, I can contact them. I mean, they'll be in charge for that and probably come out and do it, but I can, or I guess we could maybe try and do Zoom connection.
Okay,
during
can we
the
do like
meeting.
one day, maybe a little small workshop, we us to get together, I know we're doing a budget workshop type thing, but where we can actually sit down through these questions and actually,
I mean, they're
Put
pretty
some-
well
put some
vetted
out.
questions that they've done across.
Well,
I was gonna say, to be honest, I like what this is.
like the
If
question right
that's the
here,
desire of council, I can contact them and do it, but it's up to y'all.
like a Fletcher open space, okay, that can be many things. And some of the stuff that we can't even do, I do like the part of the, our service, you kind of rate our services here, we do at Fletcher. Some of the stuff is, like traffic flow on major roads. I guess we can forward that over to DOT. We can't really do anything about that. Well-designed neighborhoods. It's air quality. There's nothing we can probably, water resources, beaches, lakes, ponds and rivers. We can't put in a beach, we can't make them more lakes, so we got a river, so I don't know how.
We have a creek.
And those are ones that could be struck. They did ask, and you can strike questions you don't feel are appropriate to Fletcher. The
Right.
waterway one, when I went through and proofed it, I struggled with, but I thought, well, we've got.
Because of the creek.
We got King Creek, so, yeah. And some of the, like air quality, yeah, I struggled about taking this out because at least my thought process on this was whatever feedback you get on this, we could share with, on that topic, the appropriate agency that oversees that, like the traffic related one.
Yeah.
And I can see that, okay.
So, anyways, just for the ones that aren't services we do manage.
I was just trying to make it streamlined. If you make it too big of a survey, people won't take it. They'll get too busy or too
They'll just
tied up.
quit.
They'll just get halfway, look at it real quick, so there's 5 pages of survey, and either they'll just go here and, I don't know if like schools, you go to college, it says rate the instructor, and they get tired of it, and they said, okay, we're just gonna give them all 5s. I want them to actually take their time and look at it, but if it gets past 20 or 30 minutes, they're going to get to the point where they're just not going to do it. That's what I'm afraid of. So. And like I said, if we don't have to make decisions tonight, it'd be nice to either us to get together one day or go back over it, or a small workshop or something, but that's just my opinion.
I like what's presented in front of me, to be honest. The only questions I even saw to strike, I think there was something on question 8, I believe that I wrote down, watch online or TV. I'm not sure that's particularly relevant to the town. And then question 11 maybe, I think it asked about the federal government and the town of Fletcher maybe.
I agree.
But-
Strike
but-
both of that. Yeah.
But, well, I was gonna say, I think that's fine. I was gonna say, I mean, if we're gonna ask that, why not the state government as well? That was my only comment, but I like what's presented in front of me, and it feels like we're getting really into the nitty gritty of this, and it feels like it's defeating the purpose of us paying to have this survey done for us.
Well, my feeling is if you're going to pay, you got to do it right.
Well,
Not rushing.
and I agree with that, but it seems like we're marking out a lot of the survey here.
Well, the ones that bother me the most are the ones on that last page, Chris, asking you about how much you make monthly, how much
Yeah.
it's gonna increase. It almost seems to me like they're trying to use this survey to collect information that's gonna be used for some other purpose.
Yeah, I didn't like that either.
I say strike that whole page. That's my opinion.
Can we look at this over the week and
Yeah,
discuss it
sure.
again next
Absolutely.
Monday? And-
Yeah, I mean, they
Let's
said
give
we get
everybody an
closer.
opportunity to decide what they'd like to strike out, and what they'd like to change.
Yeah. They sent it to us and they said, if, you want to strike any questions out of here, staff-wise,
And so Heather and I proofed it, and we debated about some of the ones that are not town services, but I suggested keep it in, and then if some of these things, you can
Pass the
send it to
information
someone
on.
else,
Yeah, we can.
yeah, and give them, maybe to give them the feedback on it. Because I know you don't want to give the impression the town's controlling or managing some of these things that are outside of our authority or control. But yeah, I mean, please, that's why you got a draft of it. I was trying to keep it as close, or at least my suggestion to, what their template is for these questions. And, if you don't want the demographic information, I think they're trying to capture on that last page, we could strike it out. It's your survey.
I think the demographic information can be important. We just had a whole presentation about aging population. So if we're asking these questions about, how people feel in our town, shouldn't we know if our elderly population doesn't feel safe or women don't feel safe in particular? Like, why would we not have the demographic questions?
Yeah, I don't have a problem with the demographic ones, other than the ones that are asking how much money you make, and possibly the one about your overall health. Although even that could steer more programs.
I guess they're trying,
Yeah.
to determine income levels, so we have an idea of that in town.
But why is
for some-
an income level important to anybody?
I guess
I mean,
just trying to.
we always
I
get
can't
asked this
answer
kind of
that.
stuff, and I never really get a good understanding of why it's important. Are we gonna treat somebody that makes more money any different?
Yeah, I don't, and I think it's, I'm not.
Or unless
I'm
they're
not
trying to find
get-
out who's under the poverty level or something.
Probably lower income than the upper income, but I guess to determine, get an idea of what that, you got some of it already from the census, so that gives you some information about median household income. So this, I guess, gets a little bit more specific to find out what income levels are of folks that are responding. And it doesn't tie it back to an individual person, it's anonymous, so.
And I'm okay putting some type of category about the age after hearing the presentation today. That's not a problem whatsoever. A lot of this other stuff, I just understand why it's in there.
Now, I know it may make it too long, but that question we had about the Greenway, what about something like additional Greenway trails that extend from the town's park system over to the Meritor property and eventually to the proposed Hellbender Trail connecting Asheville and Hendersonville?
Now, connecting that part, that's outside of city limits, correct? So we won't have anything to do with that, yeah.
But we still want to get our part up to it so that we can keep it going.
So that'd be the county.
Well, I'd love to look at it and really mull it over as to the importance of each one, and I'm sorry I didn't do it beforehand, and then next Monday, we'll just see how much closer we are in agreement as to what goes, what stays, and I'm sure the majority, almost all of it will stay, maybe 10% or something, maybe less. But if we don't have any more closure, then have a meeting then.
And some of these things you might can define better, like I know some of these put actually parentheses in here and actually wrote like a definition, you can define it. I mean, like Fletcher open space, that could be many things, and you could probably put a parentheses and define what that is. It might help some folks. Like for example, land usage, planning and zoning. Is it good, is it bad? Some people might think, you're zoning and telling me everything I can do. I'm going to put poor or excellent. I don't know what they'll put in there, or code enforcement. How do you feel code enforcement? Might not say they don't like code enforcement. I don't know.
And that's part of the problem by a survey like this.
It's
It's easy for somebody to read something else into something.
Yeah, if they put poor because they think they don't be the code enforcement they don't like, they put poor, then it comes back to here and say, well, but apparently we need to up our code enforcement because it's poor. So you can look at it two different ways and two different viewpoints, but at least spell it out a little better.
And I thought we talked about possibly having a sentence or something at the end, letting people know that if they have any other comments concerning things they like or don't like about the town, they can go to and then give them a link to our webpage where they can leave comments. Not totally part of the survey, just steering them to where they can leave a comment.
Yeah, we did talk about that. They mentioned, the Representative Folco, that we could do, it's basically a survey after this. It's on the digital platform, and we give people the opportunity to provide additional comments like that. So there's I guess, a way to do that, for lack of a better word. So, well, if y'all could look through this, and if there's specific ones you want struck or changed, but I need to, I can come up with with suggestions of language, but I need to know which ones and what stuck on, in order to work on that. And if it winds up being more productive to have a representative, I can arrange for that, someone from Folco that come
Let's
and
let
do-
us hash on it,
That's
or we
fine.
can provide our
Yeah.
feedback and see where we stand at that point.
Okay.
Sound good?
Agreed.
Sounds good to me. For everything else on this item, before we move on?
Oh, and y'all had questions from the last meeting, and I emailed everyone about it. I didn't really hear back from many folks, but there was several questions about, being able to send it to everybody, all our households that are listed, about someone duplicating the survey, and I provided the response that I got back from our rep with Polko, Caitlin Weber, and she tried to address these things. I don't know if that did adequately. I can go through each one of them, or if you've got additional questions about that. Or
Do you mind going through it real quick?
Sure.
Mark,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yep. Y'all had asked about, how are we ensuring that only one person per household completes the survey, and is there some way the system prevents the same person from completing the survey twice?
Real quick on that.
Yeah.
I know you said one person per household now with today's age and stuff like that. Some people might have multiple people living in that one house.
Right.
How does that work?
The instructions they told me in the survey says they asked the person who had the most recent birthday in the household that's over 18.
'Cause I know we got a lot of folks where, their kids go off, get college, come back, and they live there they could be in their 20s and have kids and everything else. So only one person gets to say what they want. And I was just kind of curious, is that
That's a
right or wrong?
household, so it's like you're at 123 Elm.
Yeah.
They're asking for one person. in the
Just one
household.
person. They just have to sit
So you
down
have to
together.
agree.
They have to sit down together and take straws and vote, I guess, yeah. That type of thing. I mean, whatever.
Hey, they try and make it easier for everybody, saying the person with the birthday that's most close, but you can do it however you want to do that.
I was just curious. Go ahead.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
It's okay. So
Family has to
on the
agree.
first one about the duplicates, they got a process that you mentioned here for data collection where they clean and review the survey responses, and they use an algorithm to identify surveys that have a certain degree of similarity. So if they see one that comes with all the same responses on there, and maybe, if you kept the demographic questions, they could probably tie it back to someone doing that. And then they also use colored paper for the physical surveys. So obviously, photocopy, it's going to be white. Prevent them from returning multiple surveys. They mention it's really been a concern or a problem, I guess, in other communities where you get high numbers of duplicates. So I guess that'd be someone trying to game the system.
Did you say that it had been a cause for concern?
No, she says that it's understandable that that y'all have a concern about it, but said they rarely see high numbers of duplicates.
Okay.
Yep.
if at all. And they use cookies to prevent a user from submitting multiple electronic surveys. So you can't do that multiple times. And the next question was about what's process or methodology used for random sampling on the postcard mailing. So on the random sampling, they select a subset of random households from the community that received the survey. And to do this, they get boundary data. And we've sent them the boundary data file. It's a GIS file. And I don't know if what they've done with that yet, but so they get a boundary data so we can, show them specifically what our town limits are. And then the user sources to geocode the households that are within our boundaries. And then they randomly select a number of households. In an effort to make their sample size representative, they do over-select multifamily homes compared to single-family homes because they usually see less of a response from multifamily homes. So if you want, we could say don't over-select multifamily homes, just randomly select whether they're single-family or multifamily. For Fletcher's National Citizen Survey, they evaluate the exact counts of mailings that will be sent out after they get the initial geocoding results. Basically, they're saying right there that they can find out how many of our households, once they go through that geocode, they geocode the data for households within our area. Because I know there was a question about trying to do all the households or concern that, instead of random. Once they can determine how many total would be in the random, they can give us that number and then, I guess, determine based on their analysis what's the total number of households that they're showing in the files. So that was that question. And then I mentioned we had about 3,200 households in Fletcher. How much more would Polko charge if we attempted to mail to all the households, which is part of what I was talking about. Once they do that geocode, they'll find the exact number of households, and then I guess they can determine, compared to what the actual number is in the random versus all the households, how much more that would be to send it to all of them and give us a price. So just trying to get at those questions you had about that.
Did you get a feeling, to us, it seems common sense. It would make more sense to poll everybody, give everybody an equal opportunity to provide feedback. But do you get a sense that other places have raised that same concern?
I don't have that sense on that. I'll say this. I think the larger community you get,
Yeah, I guess
my
it'd be a
guess
lot
would
harder.
be it's much harder to do that, and you won't get maybe board members, elected officials wanting that or pushing for it. The smaller, obviously, it's simpler to do or less expensive trying to send out, one that captures maybe all your households as best as you can determine who and where they are. And remember, that second phase to this gives everybody in town an opportunity to do this too. Yeah. And we'll blitz that out, and you all spread the word, and
That's true.
but we'll work with them to try and get a price on what the total households would be. I like doing the total households, but they've done this for a long time, and I think random sampling works pretty well. And then that second phase, where you let the public know if you didn't get this and you want to respond or participate, then you do it electronically, or you get one mailed to somebody, a hard copy.
Anything more on that item?
Just, I guess.
Go ahead, Bob.
You might want to call them this week, and just get a little bit of information from them so you can let us know next Monday why they really need all this financial information. Because it could really turn people off.
Or is that the option, just to skip the question?
I mean, yeah, you don't have to respond to it too, but I don't know, when I buy a shaver, you know, and you get the little
I
card
know we
that
get
says-
those questions all the time, but I never understand why.
I don't know. I'll ask them. I mean, that's a good. I know with demographics, it gives you more information analysis about who is out there in the community that meets these different descriptions. So, sure, I'm going to ask them, and I'll have that conversation if should we need to have, you know, meeting with the company official about, you know, some of the whys on this and how they arrived at some of these questions.
I mean, it does kind of make you wonder when they talk about, you know, household income and stuff, and that's fine for a household, but if you have a multi-family household, you know, the question, in which category is your age? It could go anywhere from birth to 90. So there could be a mix of people, so if only one person gives the answer.
You don't really have a picture of the financial situation of the household.
I mean, it's almost like
Nor the age.
they should say, what age groups live in your household and let you do more than one?
I've seen that before. I've seen surveys where they ask what age groups live under your roof or in your household.
Or if you decide to leave it, just put up some other big parentheses or something, this is optional if they want to fill it out.
There's no.
Well, we'll talk about it next week.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, moving on to item number 8 on our agenda, the update on traffic impact analysis for the town center project. Mr. Manager again.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to go up to the podium and pull up our GIS and show you a map that I'll go over the traffic improvements or mitigation. I'll go over the mitigation recommendations that Maynard. So Maynard and Craig is the company. You got a copy in your packet of the updated traffic impact analysis that the traffic engineering firm, Maynard and Craig, they were working with our developer. We've kind of taken over to finish and hopefully get to a place that will work on mitigation improvements based on the impact of the project on traffic in the area. James Boso, I mentioned his name in here, he was the point of contact. He finished the updated TIA, or traffic impact analysis, November 18th. He got that out. He sent it to me. I forwarded it to y'all. I don't know if you had a chance to look at it. I'm trying to highlight. It's on page 4 and I'll get to this here in a minute, what the recommended mitigation improvements. And what they do is they run this data through a modeling formula, and it's based on these criteria that DOT has from their manual when you do a traffic impact analysis. The good things in here, and I think this is based on that meeting we had with DOT, he recommends, and I think DOT would be willing to release having us do mitigation improvements at Cane Creek in 25, where CBS is, Woodhill Drive in 25, which is going into South Chase, and then right here at Old Cane Creek and East Fannin Bridge. The recommendations that in the revised TIA focus on these intersections that are most directly impacted. So it's your 25 and Fanning Bridge, Highway 25 and Fanning Bridge, and Howard Gap and 25. And I'll just kind of run through the
the mitigation improvements were. And Eric and I met with Will Bowie, the engineer, who has worked with the developer, and Will had some really good questions. We followed that up with James Boso, and I'll mention one thing that we tried to suggest in here is the consideration of Old King Creek Road coming across and connecting to Howard Gap. We talked about some of this before. This analysis, right now, DOT is now pushing for the roundabouts or a decision on all those other traffic improvements that were mentioned before. They kind of, in the TI here, is just focused on improvements at these intersections that they think address adequately what the impact on trips are on our project site. So, bear with me here, I'll get in here. I'm gonna sign it.
I tried looking at this when you sent it out, but there's some terms in there, stuff that I just really didn't understand.
Well, it's going to get really heavily into the data and these terms that traffic engineers use. But I mean, it's pretty plain spoken here on page 4 what the conclusion, the mitigation improvements. So I'll run through that. Here, let me get it to you. So you should have, is it coming up on your monitors there?
It is.
Okay.
Thank you.
There's basically 3 areas of improvements that in the TIA that they're suggesting right now. The first is on 25 and Fanning Bridge. So Town Hall, right over here, I'm moving the cursor around down here, coming up East Fanning Bridge Road here, heading west. They talk about, I'm going to cross over the intersection, I'm sorry, first. So coming on Fanning Bridge here, heading towards 25, heading east now, a right-hand turn lane there that's 100 feet long. So that's one, and that was in the original comments. And then the next was on the northbound lane, so coming up north, you're heading toward Clock Towers on the corner, a right turn lane in there with 100-foot full storage. And then the next thing was, as you're heading west here on Fanning Bridge Road towards the intersection, 2 left-hand turn lanes. So right now we've got 1 left-hand turn lane. They're talking about dual there. And then some of the traffic signal revisions to accommodate some different configuration here. I guess it would just help to process that through the intersection. So that's one set right there. Then the next was addressing Highway 25 and Howard Gap. So, oops.
While you're zooming in there, Mark, right there, you say you talked to Bill Bowie about this, correct?
Yes.
That 100-foot lane going north, it kind of intrudes on that project they had. Was they okay with that?
The right turn lane that goes in front of the clock tower?
Yeah, and it comes on East Fanning Bridge. I know that intrudes into their project area right there.
No. That was one they challenged.
Okay.
And right now, the traffic engineer has said that that's needed. And please keep in mind, this is a draft. So some of these things aren't final still. So it's a discussion with the consultant, council, get this to a place where the consultant feels like it's going to address the requirements of DOT. And then once we get this down to that point, we send it back to DOT and say, do you accept this? And then what kind of contribution would be required from the developer to it? So some of this could change, but we're challenging that. Right now, it's saying in order to accommodate the traffic because of the left-hand turn lane here on East Fanning Bridge, that would be required or helpful to do that. So then on Howard Gap in 25, then they're talking about two left-hand, so if you're heading south here on 25, heading towards Power Gap Road, two left-hand turn lanes in here instead of the one that we have right now. Just gonna-
So that means you'd have it tapered down into one lane, just like you do up there in front of Ingles.
Here's the dilemma, well, I'll get to what it feels a dilemma on this. So they're saying two left-hand turn lanes coming south, and then as you turn onto Howard Gap Road, they're wanting two lanes to receive it. You can see that widening of Howard Gap Road, the two receiving lanes for a distance of 1,000 feet. That's pretty big, pretty huge.
How far is it from that road right there to,
1,000 feet.
yeah, I mean, yeah, does it go to the school, or you
Yeah.
just stay in that one lane and just pop into school?
It goes, he measured it, I think it went right to the school or right past it.
Okay.
It's like almost in front of it. It does go, I believe, in front of it, 1,000 feet. So, this was probably the one that they had the most heartburn with, that, you know, is that much of receiving lane improvements necessary based on the trips that this project produces?
Well, apparently they've never been at that intersection
During school
several
time?
times during the day, because it's backed up so bad.
Well, in rush hour times it is.
Yeah.
Midday, it's not. You know, your peak time in the morning, peak
Yep.
time in the afternoon is where you get some of them. But, and that's what they try to address, is AM and PM
Yeah.
demands on this. And then reconfiguring the traffic light. So basically two left-hand turn lanes coming down 25 and then 1,000 feet of two receiving lanes. Right now, there's only one. So that was, and then the last one was pretty minor. It's just, where Depot Street is right now is like midway in the project. And, talking about doing a widening, the egress, so the two lanes leaving, one left turn lane and only one right turn lane out of there. 100 feet internal protected, so I guess 100 feet is dedicated until you leave out of there right or left only. I guess you could go straight across. So those were the mitigation improvements that they recommended. One thing, and we have a bunch of follow-up questions on this, but I wanted to give you, a sense or flavor of kind of the depth of this. It's not possible, but probably the biggest one that would be challenging to do is that, 1,000 feet of that receiving lane there. One thing you brought up that, and it may be enough to mitigate these other things, is do you consider then bringing across, so right, I'm moving the cursor here, extending Old Camp Creek Road down across, over here, Old King Creek Road on some configuration as another connection over Howard Gap. And that probably would help. So one thing we wanted to, and if you all are okay with this, is run some modeling to what would that impact if you extended Old King Creek Road down to Howard Gap, which is something we've talked about with the whole Carter Fletcher Town Center project for years, is another connection, another entrance basically to the property. And that would be extending that road down, whether the green building has to come down and Public Works gets relocated, or if there's some other configuration to do this. And that may make the most sense in ultimate development of the property to do that. But so that's one other thing. And we were going to, Thursday morning, we're going to have a conference call with James Wilkes, the consultant, traffic engineering consultant, and Will Bowie, Eric, and I are going to talk about some of these other scenarios. But I want to give you a good idea of what, right now, where they're at, that he feels meets the requirements for DOT based on the trips generated there. So we had a bunch of other questions on it. I don't know if there's any initial comments or questions you've got.
I got so many questions, I don't know where to start. First of all, the one you just talked about, if we extend Old Cane Creek Road all the way over, that intersection, as well as the one that they want to put actually coming out of the development, the people that are going to be coming out those intersections are going to want to be going south. If they wanted to go north, they would have gone one of the other roads. So how are all those people going to cut across all those lanes of traffic to go south?
Yeah, I'm not clear.
It makes no sense to me at all,
Well,
unless you put in another set of stoplights or something.
well, this is what likely would happen, is most of the people, unless it's a simple right turn out, leaving there, remember this is peak times, not all day long, would most likely go along that back road that they propose to build across the back of the property, and coming out and then going, up here to Canyon Bridge at 25 or down to Howard Gap, rather than coming out.
But they're going to be coming out and then trying to get across 3 or 4 lanes to go south.
Yeah,
I mean,
it doesn't make sense to me either. It was one.
It's like they don't seem to think that that's going to be an issue, but I think it's going to be a huge issue.
I think in the scheme of the overall project, you're not going to have a lot bottled up there.
You're not going to have a lot bottled up there?
I don't think so, because this was a big issue that they made on it, is there would be this enormous delay trying to leave the middle, this depot area, and that people will avoid that, and come, which is part of the purpose they designed it with that road that runs parallel to the railroad tracks, was to have them come in and out through there as much as possible, rather than less through that center part.
I just don't understand how it works. The other thing is...
And I can have the traffic engineer explain how that works, and have them back.
And this whole discussion to me is bizarre in that they're trying to make it sound like all of these problems are caused by this development we're putting in. But we have all of these problems right now, and the development's not even there.
Exactly.
It's definitely, I think my opinion, or y'all's opinion, and the developer, they're being tasked with fixing some of the issues that are already there, to an extent. So particularly some of these right turn lanes, and the one on, back up to the intersection of Canyon Bridge, that's getting into really addressing some of the ongoing issues that are already there.
And I also question what the impact is going to be of that other place that's going across the street, the, whatever you call it, the brew pub with the restaurant.
Food hall, yeah.
Yeah, and I know Eric has given them a heads up,
But I guess it's because they're smaller, they don't worry about that. I think that's going to be a bigger impact.
I think they need more of a heads up of, how that could impact this. But yeah, they're talking 100-foot lane right there. And they want to repurpose, as part of the plans, the old auction house building. Hundreds are probably coming right out.
Yeah, at least to there.
50s probably bring it right up there.
That would help out tremendously. Have they ever taken consideration of, I know once the I-26 project's done, a lot of this traffic might be, some of it's probably I-26, but it might pull some of it away.
Some, but not enough.
Yeah.
And we've argued that too, that, so in summer of 2024, that's going to be all opened up. And this isn't going to be built out until well after that. So
But we have other subdivisions and stuff going in also.
Yeah, I mean, this could be other, more traffic's gonna come in, for the, food hall project there, and, that'll bring. Now, from the, at least from the article, their entrance, it looks like it's more on that kind of, northwest corner of the property, so coming over more here.
It's not where the entrance is now, they're gonna move it down?
From what I gathered on that, I haven't seen, specific site plans on it, I think it's further west.
Oh, that would definitely help.
Yeah. Which would make sense because of the traffic bottling there up at that intersection. Particularly certain times of the day, it's doing it. It's a weird intersection, because sometimes when you would think it would be really backed up, it's not, and then other times of the day, it is, when it's not a peak traffic. Typically at 8
A lot of
to
it
9,
depends on who the first person in line is. Are the people in the front turning right where they can turn right on red, or are they waiting for one person to turn left?
I think some type of right-hand turn lane, I think we all could agree would help quite a bit right there to stop some of the traffic stacking.
And I think the other question that we need to ask DOT is, if this project totally falls through, doesn't get done, period, what are they going to do about these intersections?
Yeah. Certainly convey that. But in particular, I was just curious, any thoughts you had about the extending Old King Creek Road down to Howard Gap? That's certainly,
That's going to cost us dearly if we have to relocate the green building and the public works.
right.
I don't think you should
I agree.
relocate the public works. I think they can make the road. If they said to do that or proposed it, that building needs to stay.
And we, like I said, we've talked about.
Isn't
this
the,
council and prior councils about trying to plan and develop the rest of the property to go out and,
I mean, you already got Johnson Street's going to be connecting the East Fannin Bridge to Howard Gap, and you're going to have another road, I guess, the Old King Creek they're talking about.
yeah, I'm talking about Old King Creek.
So it'll be parallel roads beside each other,
Yeah, so,
one on each side of the railroad track.
on the developer side, or that, on our property side, there'll be a road that runs parallel to the tracks on that side, on the west side of the property. And I'm talking about some iteration of an extension of Old King Creek down to Howard Gap. And you may be able to miss Public Works. It would probably make a lot of sense for that green building to come out of the way.
I could live with the green building being removed, but not public works, but I still question, what in the devil are they going to do with all that traffic when it hits Howard Gap Road?
Yeah.
Because everybody coming down that road wants to go south. They don't want to go north.
Depends where you're going.
Well, if you're coming from the north, going from the north down to the south, why would you come down and then want to go back north? Why not go up Old Airport Road or Fanning Bridge Road?
I wonder if it would help to make it one way off of Howard Gap and then one way coming down Johnston Street, where it'd be like one way this way and one way the other way. And if you go around the building then and just make it a meandering curve, it's just going to keep your traffic flow a little slower, which would be nice.
That's what they've suggested at this point. So we're going to try and run some other scenarios on this, but we're trying to move this along quickly. So
you know, as expeditiously, if you will, as possible, so that you can get some idea, you know, what are we dealing with as far as the ultimate improvements. I can have James come and speak to some of these things more, the why, how that would work.
I think that might be,
The Depot Street.
I think that might be helpful.
There's just so much of this that to me doesn't make common sense.
I don't disagree.
And we shouldn't be the ones trying to put common sense into it. They should.
Do we have any more questions, comments, concerns on that item? Thank you, Mark. Next item is item number 9, the proposed budget schedule for fiscal year 2023-2024. Mr. Manager.
Thanks. You've got in your packet the proposed budget schedule for kind of key meetings for the process. If you want to flip to that, I'll mention just some specific dates. If you could be checking your calendar, and you know, we're flexible to move some of this around if it doesn't work for council. We're just trying to, you know, give enough time in between some of these kind of key things that have to happen in the process. So we're suggesting, similar to what we've done in previous years, kind of starting that process in you know, late December, early January, but at the regular meeting in January, do another work session like we've done in the past, where department heads have an opportunity to talk about past year accomplishments, so what's being done with the current fiscal year budget, and then look at discuss any big picture items. The budget instructions would go out, budget requests would come in, be due February the 10th from department heads. Then we go through those in administration side. And then that budget workshop where you get the full presentation from department heads, March the 29th. We're looking from 8:30 to 3, or as long as that takes. So March the 29th is...
I think it's a Wednesday.
It's a Wednesday,
Yeah.
yeah. So if you could just check your calendars on this, and I can send the table around too, if that's helpful, email it to you.
Yeah, could you? Can maybe everybody
I'm just gonna make
check
a
their
note here.
calendars and get back next week?
Okay.
Let us know if we're okay then. You know, Mark, I did have one question that's budget related.
Mm-hmm.
How's, so the market study, like what's the status on that?
Yeah.
Like, are we going to be able to maybe consider raises for folk next fiscal year?
Or in this year, it's a draft has been completed, and we're trying to get some additional data from the consultant right now. And so we're expecting at any time, we've had to push him to look at not just the positions that are below market, but we're wanting some input on there, trying to bring our lowest paid positions, particularly in public works and parks and rec, to see if we can bring that above market.
Sure.
So we can be maybe more of a leader and not just making, you know, meeting the market, if you will,
Yeah,
or
absolutely.
matching what the market rate is.
Yeah.
Because we think that might help with retention issues. So it's complicated because it affects our pay and classification plan. So he's working on that right now. I'm hoping within the next weeks or month here, we have some specific, with numbers, to present to you to see what kind of appropriations possibly in the current fiscal year. you know, to
Okay,
Get that going.
even better.
Yeah, better, yeah. So, that's what's going on with that. So March 29th, if you could check your calendars, and then the other is May the 10th, where I present the recommended budget to you. And that's during the week as well. May the 10th is a Wednesday. And we're flexible. If it needs to be a better day of the week there, we can. I was trying to stay away, because you got council meeting, you get agenda review May 1st, your regular meeting May 8th, and I don't know if you want to be the very day after your regular meeting, have a all-day budget workshop here, so just give a little bit of space. That's why May the 10th. So if you can check your calendars on that, or if you see anything in particular that's a conflict, if you can let me know.
You know, so everybody want to just double check their calendars and get back next week, make sure we can make this happen.
And I'll email the table.
Thank you, Mark.
Yep.
And final item are your comments, Mr. Manager.
Thank you. So, a couple things. And this one ties back to the whole Greenway kind of comments or discussion from the survey. The French Broad River MPO they have various planning grant opportunities, and they're a way to either analyze traffic issues or look at other bicycle pedestrian planning, I guess, requirements or analysis, like getting into preliminary design. They have a planning grant, and it's due December 19th. We just were made aware of that from last month from Tristan Winkler, who's the head of the French Broad River MPO, and Eric, Rufa, myself, Tristan, and Rebecca Robinson with Conserving Carolina has been working on our Greenway extension from the park over the Meritor property. Suggested this grant application. We could put that in. If we get it, there's a match obligation. It's 20% match obligation. It's a planning grant that would get us up-to-date analysis on cost estimates, but this is extending it. We wouldn't pay for the construction part of this, but it would do a preliminary design from where our park, Cane Creek Greenway ends, coming across Fernleaf and Meritor property underneath the interstate and going all the way to the French Broad, because that's the connection that brings it into the regional network of greenways. And if we do it at that level, then that improves our chances to get grants for the construction money side. And that's why, because we did talk to them about, well, could we just do the planning grant and it end at I-26, because that's kind of like where our town limits end. Well, if we're doing this and asking for a planning grant, it makes more sense to do it to the connection, which would be continuing along Cane Creek and to where it intersects down at French Broad, if I remember that right on the map. So we're looking at a planning grant on it, and if we get it, there's a 20% match on it, and this is just the analysis of a preliminary design and cost estimate on it. It's not construction. So I'm just letting you know that's in the works to get into our bigger regional system, that Hellbender Trail. And then next thing I wanted to mention, the draft design for the pickleball, tennis court, basketball courts, that should be coming very soon. McGill's Associates, is working on the design. I know you all agreed on the concept, but this is like the final design that would go out for bid. We'll probably vet that through Parks and Rec Advisory Board, and then if you all need to see it before it gets bid, we could do that as well. But it's that's forthcoming, and we need to get it finished up soon here and get it ready for bid, because we're trying to get this done within our fiscal year too, because it's been funded there.
So that's coming soon.
I'd like to see it before
It gets
send
bid.
it out,
Okay.
even if you have to just send it to us and let us.
Yeah, electronically, yeah. I mean, it'll be the concept.
Right.
That y'all agreed on. Street resurfacing projects, and I'm sorry if there's any questions back on that, on the design for the courts, that project. Okay. The street resurfacing project, so we're looking at Hawks Nest and Sandpiper Court, and these are roads in South Chase that are off of Glen Springs. So remember last year we did a pretty big project in Glen Springs and used some Powellville fund balance to finish that because the quotes came in so high. This one we should be able to do within our current allocation, these two streets, and they connect and kind of help finish resurfacing of that part of South Chase. And our road's very much in need of it. Hawks Nest Drive and Sandpiper Court, they'll be getting a cost estimate to you for the January meeting. And then if that looks acceptable, we'll move to a design and bid. Just want to give you a heads up what's going on with the Powellville projects. I don't know if there's any questions. That's all I had.
Any questions? Any other business from council?
I had a couple just quick questions. Looking at the back here with the public works and stuff. Brush pile pickup. I know it's on the side of the road. Do they do anything? I'm just questioning. Do they do anything like if elderly people that cannot drag their brush to the side of the road and they can actually pull in their driveway and pick it up, or has it got to be on the side of the road? The reason why I said that, I seen it on Fannin Bridge. There's actually, for example, Fannin Bridge, it's a high traffic and they was picking up brush and cars are trying to get around it. For safety, it'd be nice if they just pulled in their driveway or something. Do they do that?
I don't think they do. Now, I know we will if you sign up and you're an elderly person or someone with a disability, where you can get the garbage cart, well, they'll go like up close to your house and get it to help.
For the garbage?
Yeah.
I didn't know if they did it for brush, even for our safety for our folks.
Yeah.
Fannin Bridge Road, I mean, there was cars all over them.
Yeah.
As they're trying to pick up brush, it'd be nice if they could just pull it in the driveway and pick it up and they ain't gonna get hurt or killed for that.
Yeah,
I was just curious about
I
that.
think they'll go in a little ways on it, and it makes sense. I mean, I know from a just traffic safety standpoint, they're going to Fannin Bridge. But I'll ask. I don't think they do, but there might be some situations where they try and accommodate, or if it's safer to come in, because they have to have space too. Ever since we transitioned to the knuckle boom truck, they have space for that to safely move.
Or if they can go in and evaluate the location of the brush. I know if, an 80-year-old person trying to drag brush to the curbside, that's kind of hard. And
Right.
at least, again, safety for our folks. I've seen that on Fannin Bridge, and I don't want our guys to get hurt when they could just pull it in a driveway right there and actually picked it up, that type of thing. And the second thing I had, just another question is, I know we had it in the, kind of goes with hand in hand with the budget and everything. Where are we at on the YouTube stuff, the cameras and everything? It's like
Matthew has got a quote. I just asked him not long ago. I know he's waiting for some information back from the vendor who he's got the quote from to do it. And some of the delays has been, like a lot of things, equipment, it's back ordered, that kind of thing. But we've got a quote on it, and I know he's following up with the vendor on it. I just asked not long ago.
Okay.
But it's in the budget, and that is going to happen, so.
I was just kind of curious. Yeah, we're
Yeah,
at 6
yeah.
months, and I didn't hear nothing about
Okay.
it. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
That's all I had.
Any other business from council? Okay, do we have a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion.
We have a motion to adjourn. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of adjourning say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? We are